and welcome to another episode of Longevanity. We're starting a little later today. I'm just trying to get my other Instagram hooked up here, so then we'll begin momentarily. Let's just see here. I think it's going live. Perfect. So we are all set and ready to begin. All right, so let's bring us back in here. So again, just before we get started, thank you all for joining us today. Just to make sure everyone again is aware that this content is really for educational purposes. The goal is to create talk points so that you can go and see your own primary care doctor or those who are involved in your health and ask those important questions, and most importantly, get those answers and start feeling better and living your best life. So thank you for joining us today. My name's Amber Bocknek. I am a physician with a focused practice in anti-aging medicine. And again, today I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the pillars of aging and, more importantly, anti-aging and trying to live your healthiest, longest possible life. So really with this, I really want to chat a bit about the concept of health span. So what is a health span? So lifespan, of course, is the length of time that we're alive. Health span are the years that we live very healthily. So again, in many senses, if you were to try to think about, well, what would my sort of quality of life trajectory be? What you don't want it to be is sort of this downward sloping as you get older, less and less quality, less and less independence. Really what we want is to sort of live a nice, healthy life and then, kick the bucket one day. So how do we live the longest, the healthiest? Well, a lot of that comes from laying a really good foundation as soon as possible. The sooner you become aware of what you need to do to maintain your health, the better. So let's back it up a little bit and let's try to talk a little bit today about, well, what happens in normal aging and what happens in our body. I think if we better understand what's actually happening to us, it helps to understand and be motivated to try to stick to a plan where we can keep ourselves in our best health for as long as possible. So I'm going to back you way up now to a little bit of biochemistry. And what I want to talk about today a little bit is some of the different things that happen in our body. And what's very interesting, if you really want to do a deep dive into a sort of the psychology behind all of this, or at a different level, you have to think about that movie, The Matrix. Does anybody remember that movie from the late 90s? Again, if you didn't see it, it was sort of a sci-fi futuristic movie where machines took over the world and basically took humans as living batteries, and they kept them in this dream state while they harvested energy from them. So the concept of the matrix, so this dream state, is that the human experience really was meant to be summed up in what we experienced in our brain. So while people were connected in this energy plant in the movie, they were living a life in their brain while their body was basically being taken for purposes of making energy in this make-believe world. But when you think about that concept, actually, it's really interesting. So if you think about us as living creatures, now not the movie, we experience the world through the way our brain interprets different signals. So in some senses, we are a brain of experiences or interpretations based on stimuli that our body brings to our brain. Yeah, that's a lot. But when you think about it, how we keep everything functioning is really important. So let's take it from there. Mitochondria. The mitochondria are the energy producing units in every single one of our cells. What do mitochondria do? Well, at their simplest forms, they take an energy source. So for us, that's basically hydrocarbons in the form of sugars, so glucose and other sugars, which are carbohydrates. Again, our carbohydrates kind of come through that pathway, and through fatty acids and triglycerides. So we have a couple of different ways. So from our food sources, we're getting these little molecules that come into the mitochondria. And then in the mitochondria, this is a way back playback, and I hate to torture any of you who have a little bit of PTSD from biochemistry, but this gets back to like the Krebs cycle and things like that. In the mitochondria, in every cell of our body, all day long from birth to death, there's enzymes inside these little microscopic furnaces that are converting sugar into energy in a usable form, because sugar of its own, we don't actually use that in energy. We take it to make energy that our cells use. So this is a complex process of little sequential enzyme steps. And these steps need certain things in order to process the sugar from its unusable form, the way it comes in, into something called ATP. Do you remember ATP? I know this is like a way back play pack. It's very painful midday in your brain. But ATP is actually what the end result is, that we want to have a usable form of energy. And so we need very specific B vitamins for this. So again, why are B vitamins important? Well, B vitamins are intimately involved in the formation of usable energy in our body. Acetyl-CoA is very important, carnitine. So if we were to start to look at some of the different vitamins that are important to talk to your doctor about, as far as maybe considering for yourself, I would be asking your primary care physician about the role of B vitamins, coenzyme, acetyl-CoA and coenzyme Q10, as well as L-carnitine, because we use these things as building blocks in the management in our mitochondria. So this is where energy comes from. And so a number of times, if we have deficiencies in these areas, these specific things, as well as some of the other vitamins, it can manifest as physical symptoms like fatigue, just not having the same energy as we used to. So providing the body with the nutrients it needs to run these chemical reactions, which is ultimately what we are using and relying on in order to have usable energy that we turn into our daily function, you've got to make sure you've got those bases covered. So that's the first part in all of this. Then from there, again, we want to make sure that our mitochondria are really well stimulated. So in order to stimulate them, this is where exercise plays a role. So exercise is a training tool for our body to improve some of the efficiency in how the mitochondria work. So again, if you want to have better quality energy for a longer time, we need to make sure we're giving your body the substrates that it needs. So good food, good nutrition, proper vitamin and mineral supplementation. So B vitamins, coenzyme Q10, acetyl-carnitine, amongst others. And we want to take care of it with exercise and stimulate it to try to make sure they're efficient. The mitochondria also are subject to aging, and they become less efficient over time. They have their own regeneration cycle. Our body has its own way of clearing them when they aren't functioning properly. There are some supplements that have some soft medical evidence that they actually help with that regenerative process of removing the old and helping to build new. This is where things like urolithin A might have a role, potentially. This is a natural occurring substance. We see a lot of this in pomegranates, actually, and walnuts and some other naturally occurring foods. So you can get these things in your whole foods as well as supplement them. But this is another thing to perhaps investigate and explore with your doctor. So again, starting there is a really good foundation to try to keep yourself feeling energetic and robust and maintaining energy over life. Muscle is also important, though, not just for training and keeping the mitochondria going, but again, muscle has a really important role in maintaining us throughout our lifespan. One of the things we know that happens is people can develop a condition called sarcopenia, which is the medical term for the loss of muscle over time. And muscle is really important for a number of different reasons. So metabolically, the muscle helps to control some of the metabolic balance in our body. Having too little muscle and too much body fat, again, can create situations that are not desirable. So we want to optimize that. We also want to make sure we have enough muscle and that we have appropriate muscle coordination so that we avoid falls and frailty. So strength training, again, through part of your exercise program, may be something you might want to consider including, and would be worth a chat with your care provider to see if that's something you should be incorporating. So best healthy outcomes really kind of stem back to some of these fundamental things. A healthy diet, eat the rainbow, those bright, colorful foods, whole foods grown in nature tend to have higher quantities of some of these vitamins and minerals we're looking for. Getting proper exercise. Again, we've always talked about it, but there's actually a real role here in training mitochondria as well as building lean muscle mass, which is important to carry our bodies around throughout our life and try to keep us from falling and being frail. Another part in all of this equation is sleep. So sleep, yes, hard to come by, especially if you have a very busy life. But sleep is really important as it's our body's main regenerative time. So the body needs to make energy, and the body also needs to be able to clear waste products of metabolism. The body needs to be able to restore tissue health. And a lot of that lymphatic drainage, and particularly brain lymphatic drainage, they call that the glymphatic system, happens at nighttime when you're sleeping. So you really do want to try to find a way to prioritize sleep. So again, this may sound a little bit like that sort of pat on the head when you come in, are you eating well? Are you exercising? Are you sleeping? Yep, yep, yep. Okay, next topic. But actually, it deserves so much more attention than that because these really do have fundamentally important roles. So if you've been contemplating trying to get into healthier sleep habits, if you've been looking into some of these different things, I would definitely encourage you to continue on that path. For many people, this is really the way to do it. There really isn't a magic bullet or a magic super vitamin that does all these individual things. It's really a combination of everything together that helps you live your healthiest, best life. So you want to try to get your sleep in there. Most of the data today suggests that trying to get somewhere between 7 to 8, a few people might need 9 hours of sleep consistently, is usually best for most people. And again, along that line, if you're looking and reading or want to explore this further, if you start to look up topics around sleep hygiene, they will probably have a nice list for you of some different things you can do to try to get your sleep better. And again, with sleep, it's just not one simple thing. It's a lot of things, actually. Putting yourself on a schedule, which includes weekends and weekdays, where you try to get up and go to bed at the same time. That patterning really helps you to maintain it. Where that's a real struggle is for those who have to travel a lot across time zones for work. It's very difficult, right? Like let's be honest, that's very tricky. Or if you're a shift worker, say you work in the hospital, you do a lot of night shifts or in other fields of work where you're up at night, it's difficult. So where you can, try to establish different patterns and try to maintain them as quickly as possible. Also prepare for sleep. You can't just go lay down if you've had a head full of information racing through there all day and be able to quiet your mind. You have to prepare your mind for sleep. So a good night's sleep usually starts about 1 or 2 hours before you plan to tuck in for the night. And so what you really want to look at is trying to avoid overly brain stimulating things in those last 2 hours. Not a good time to get into a big debate about something or to watch the news if you find it particularly triggering or provoking. Try not to be doom scrolling on your social media. Again, happy things. Things also too that encourage a little bit of artistic. So again, if you like to read, draw, paint, or play music, again, sometimes those can be very nice things to help refocus your mind off of the day's tasks and help it get ready for bed. Or even again, reading a book, as long as it's not too controversial, it's not going to upset you too much. These are all good things. What you don't want to do, as mentioned, is overly stimulate. And you have to be careful about where you're reading. So sometimes if you like to read online and you're not using old school paper books anymore, you might want to invest in something like a Kindle or Kindle similar type device where it has proper lighting, blue screen filter, and you're not getting strong light into the back of your eyes as you're getting ready to sleep. A lot of light exposure in those last few hours before bed drastically impairs your body's ability to release its own melatonin. Yeah, melatonin, the stuff you take as a supplement. Melatonin is actually a naturally occurring brain hormone. It's very, very involved in our sleep-wake cycle, and it responds to the dimming of the lights at the end of the day. So again, if you notice at this time of the year, as our days are getting shorter, you find that you get tired much earlier. That again is your body naturally doing what your body is designed to do, which is to respond to the decreasing light levels and secreting more melatonin. So In order to have your best natural release of melatonin, you really want to avoid too much light in your eyes before you go to bed. And that's for the last couple of hours before bedtime. Also, you want to make sure when you are cozying up in your bed for the night that you've really eliminated light sources. So, again, not having your phone right beside your head if you can, or if you have an alarm clock, making sure that the light level is very low or possibly even turned off so that you're not getting that light exposure in your eyes. Because if you wake up or roll over in the middle of the night, you get a lot of light in your eyes, it will impair the melatonin release. So that's an important thing to use or keep in mind as you're getting ready to sleep. Along those lines, if you supplement with melatonin, a couple things to know. There is a wide variety of dosing of melatonin. Physiologic levels, that's what your body actually makes, is usually less than about a half a milligram. A half a milligram to 1 milligram. So big doses of melatonin are not necessary for most people. In fact, actually, big doses can sometimes bother people. I don't know if you've tried melatonin in the past, if you've tried some of the larger doses, 5 or 10 milligrams, some people actually complain of very vivid dreams, some even nightmares. So, again, high dosing is not necessarily better. You have to think of vitamins and minerals and hormones and supplements almost kind of like the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You really want that porridge to be just right. And by that, not too high, not too low. So trying to mimic physiology, what your body naturally does, is often a much better way to go. So many cases, low dose melatonin is actually sometimes more helpful for people than great big whopper doses. And again, unfortunately, it's not just a simple fix. So if you are really amped up because life circumstances and work and everything else, taking a little bit of melatonin on its own without addressing some of those other wind down things may not be enough for you. And again, it's a tool to be used, melatonin is, in conjunction with these other lifestyle factors, but of its own, none of these things necessarily are enough. We have to kind of work at all of it. And that's what makes this a little bit challenging. I admit it can be hard sometimes, but with practice of trying to do the sleep hygiene, with trying to get into a schedule, what is really difficult at the beginning, if you can just persevere for several weeks, you may find becomes a heck of a lot better as you go along. So again, try to set realistic expectations for yourself. Don't expect miracles at the beginning. Know that this is a marathon, not a sprint. You need to work at this for a little while, and it will get better as you continue to progress. So those are some very, very key fundamentals in all of these things we want to work on. So again, the amount of vitamins and what's needed is actually quite a bit lower than what some of you might expect. If we really focus on the biochemistry and we look at what's actually happening with mitochondrial health, one of the things we didn't touch on today is sort of membrane health. So that's getting more into neurologic function and brain. We'll chat about that in another session. There are a few things we like to do there for that. But just if you're thinking energy health, mitochondrial health, these are some good fundamental places to get started. So let's just do a little bit of summary here. So to summarize, again, it really is for best health span, which is healthiest you for as long as possible. We really have to look at some good fundamentals. So let's start there with the fundamentals. The first is really eating a healthy diet is incredibly important. A Mediterranean diet that is balanced, not a fad diet. Maybe, if anything, just a little leaner on those simple carbohydrates, your starches, your bread, rice, pasta, and potato, with lots of colorful fruits and vegetables, usually provides an abundance of the things your body needs and usually provides an abundance of those very important amino acids, carbohydrates, healthy fats, vitamins, and minerals that you require. From there, exercise can be very important. Balanced exercise at your own pace. Again, you don't want to injure yourself in the process with some cardiovascular exercise, but definitely trying to find ways that work for you with your specific issues to incorporate some strength training can be very helpful. We do really want to work to preserve our muscle bulk. Proper sleep And again, that there's no quick fix here. This is something that it's a project. It's going to take some investment in scheduling, organizing yourself, and trying to dutifully reduce the amount of stimulation you have before night. And then consider things again like the amount of light in the room, the timing, and whether you need a supplement or not. Low and slow wins the race upon discussion with your own doctor. Maybe you start with very low doses of melatonin, even a half to 1 milligram. You can get some of those low doses out there, and then titrate carefully under the guidance of your own personal care provider. And then we can look at some other things like bumping up and supplementing some of those more key critical vitamins, minerals, and nutrients to help for mitochondrial health. So particularly looking at good healthy B vitamins, looking at um, our CogniQ or some of our Q10, and having a good amount of L-carnitine and some antioxidants to take up some of those free radicals that are generated in that whole mitochondrial process. And then later in another section, we'll talk about mitochondrial health. So putting all of that together is our best way to try to live our healthiest life. So again, if you can even work on those first few fundamental principles, it'll benefit, and it's a gift to future you for down the road. So thank you again for watching. I hope there's been something informative. Please feel welcome to send us your questions. Again, I would encourage you to like and follow. We would love to have you be a part of our program. You can subscribe down here below. I have a QR code for you there. And then again, we have our upcoming Thrive Summit. This is going to be a whole evening dedicated in detail to health and wellness and how to live your best life. So maybe you can join us. This is coming up soon on Wednesday, October 22nd. So for now, I'm going to sign off. Thank you again for our Wednesday podcast. Hopefully we'll see you next Wednesday. If you've got questions, send them to me. And again, to all of you, I hope you all live your best life. And here's to good health going forward. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.